Yes, it's yes, the point. Yes, the point is that you know we all, our parents or teachers, let's say, or our disciplinary masters. Yes, initially they seem to invent all kinds of methods for our sake, for our improvement. Yes, they already know more or less that at some point we will overcome their methods, because we are intelligent, of course. We are not stupid. Yes, and so therefore, accordingly, they will constantly shift and change their advices, their methods, their teachings. Yes, but once we mature enough to be able to know exactly when the discipline is going to come, we already develop or deploy all kinds of tactics to evade them. We know we have invented all kinds of loopholes. That's when they know that they are kind of mature enough, and so therefore they have to change their tactic, and the disappearance is probably one of them. Because the meaning is something like, to repeat again, because I'm not so satisfied. Not because of the translation, but because I think my English was not so good. Because I every now and then use a term called nature's mercy, which it's maybe is too strange, but nevertheless, there is this beauty, there's this constant and all-prevailing beauty, which maybe we can call it Dharmakaya, I don't know, but I don't like to use the Dhammakaya to somehow prove my strange words, because I don't think I'm teaching Dharma, I'm just speaking my mind. So, therefore, nature's mercy is one of my own. And so, therefore, if our parents were bodhisattvas, then we can very clearly say that they teach us what they know, they guide us accordingly. And when they know that we have more or less developed enough skills or treachery, then they know that that particular course is complete, and so therefore they move on to the next step. Yes, which is either by stepping back or they disappear, and we can, as I said, we can clearly state this if our parents were bodhisattvas. If they are not, still this takes place. Let's say our parents are ordinary beings and they still do the same, and that's, I will call that still a beautiful thing, because they still do the same. Either they get sick, or some other reason, emotional reason, social reason, whatnot, and so on. They take backward steps more and more, and eventually they disappear until we have become the parents, or we have become the teacher or something.
那么如果说呢，我们的父母是菩萨的话呢，他们呢就是教导我们，还有呢引导我们，就是他们呢所知的，这个所知道的这个一切来呢 让我们呢能够就是呢升起这各种扩展起我们的这种呢可以讲说呢是各种的这个技能。所以当我们达到一段的这个时间，我们呢已经呢扩展起了我们的这种技能，也可以说呢，我们的这个课程已经完成了。当这样的一个课程已经完成的话呢，那么他们呢要进入的另外一个步骤呢，就是消失，就是呢在我们的生命当中消失，也可以呢说是往生了。那么无论我们的父母是菩萨，或者呢是他们是凡夫，但是呢其实他们也是一个呢非常的这个美好的这个呢可以讲说呢是一个呢众生可以说是呢一个美好的人，因为呢他们在这个世间里面是通过了可以呢种种的这个磨练，然后呢成为了这个父母。而成为了这个父母之后呢，他们呢就把他们所知的这个所有的一切都可以说呢是教导给我们。
Well, in that regards, or having said all that for the last an hour or so, just for one question, a long ride. Yes. What was the question actually?
The actual question is, how do you use Lojong to handle the death of the loved one? Your own personal experience.
Yes. Well, I think I kind of explained. Yes. And so in order to answer that, I will go a little bit forward with what I said just recently. So yes. So in this case, you can see the difference between a bodhisattva and like ourselves. Yes, that the course of so-called nature is like that. It has no favoritism, no ism at all. Yes, at the end, and eventually it not really force, but the circumstances naturally sort of nudge us, let's say, to, well, not really to say grow, but to be aware. Yes. And so the difference between us and the bodhisattva is that they are able to, they first of all know that fact, and secondly, they flow with that. Yes. And so therefore, it's not a lack of compassion from their side. When they disappear, they just know that there is no other way other than taking well, still the English idiom is not correct, but sort of taking a back step and letting us come in the front and take the front stage and then gain experience.
How can Buddhism remain relevant in the new world with AI,
Yeah.
with current news of Nepal, people actually standing up against corruption and everything? So actually, personally, in some of the studies, especially during COVID,
Yes.
and during war, people give up on religion. So how can Buddhism be still relevant?
Yeah. I think probably it's impossible to put into one word into what is what we are all going through in our current era, because there are simply too many things, of course. Social unrest, natural disasters. Mm, Probably we can just summarize into those two if you really try hard. Um, and so therefore, does Buddhism have, or not does Buddhism, but how can Buddhism, I don't know, um, give some support, yes, in this sort of, I don't know, very violent current? The answer is quite vague to begin with, because Buddhism wasn't really designed in the first place to solve any problems, actually. It's something that came into being um, with each, I don't know, with each experience. Yeah. Meaning, yeah, further, yes, further. Meaning Buddhism wasn't a tool to sort of solve to solve problems in the first place. It wasn't designed in that way. If you look at, for example, the Vinaya aspect of the Tripitaka, or I mean of the practice of Buddhism, each of those sets of disciplines sort of came into being according to the circumstances. Buddha never said in the first place, these are it, and you must follow these. Actually, in the very first place, there was nothing. There was no discipline to speak of. So, likewise, in the manner of the types of meditation methods and so on, Buddha never said in the very first place, these are things you must do now, from here onwards, or so on. And with each arising circumstances, then something came into being. And this particular part that I've said so far is coming from, it's not something I've invented or something, but I think it's coming from the fact that uh, Buddhism doesn't really have a particular identity. It's sort of, it's like a wanderer, and it accords with at a vast plane. And then accordingly, it sort of complements that environment. Yes. So in this case of modernism, yes, I cannot really say how it will evolve. Actually, yeah. Yes, it is true. I did bypass that part where we normally say, oh, Buddhism is not a religion, or not exactly a religion, not exactly a philosophy. Now we have been saying that for some time, so therefore I thought no point to repeat that anymore. That's why I'm saying it in this way. Yes, social unrest of various kinds that's taking place around the world, war, disease, of course, which we felt very recently, and then now, yes, the artificial intelligence. Um, Sometimes I think we make things larger than life. I think, and because we cannot measure, yeah, we can measure a change, and so therefore, if there is something alarming, I think, or when something alarming takes place, Buddhism really doesn't have to come into the rescue like a hero, I think, yeah. The fact is, I think each and every one of us are intelligible enough to know, okay, what is the consequence of a certain, I don't know, either natural disaster or social unrest is due to a lack of moderation or something, and so we all know it, yeah. And that knowing quality, that knowing ability, if you just don't name it and just leave it as it is, probably it's all right. Yeah. But then socially, of course, when we think that when that presence of that equality is very apparent, it's only natural and once again inevitable for us as society to name that, as if it's a thing. And so likewise, we have named those qualities in various ways, either as philosophies or religions or such and such. So if you view it that way, we can kind of see the birth of Buddhism, because when such wisdom or intelligence comes into being, we cannot help ourselves but to name that, yeah, to label that. I think of course it's not out of negative intentions or something. It's obviously coming from good intentions, yes. So therefore, we have named it, or labeled what a prince had discovered through his understanding, development of his life, and then he never, I mean, in short, Siddhartha, yes, never asked someone to photograph my enlightenment under the Bodhi tree and publish that in a magazine. And then write that script that into stones so that it will live on and on and on way after way after my death, and so that everyone will remember me, No, he had no intention at all. Although we would say, oh, it was Buddha's intention to teach it in such a way, the things he conveyed, so that it will be available for all of us, in order to justify that actually it was to I don't know, to turn it into something something long lasting, to turn it into a religion and so on. No, that was never the case. I would personally like to think that he was just doing his own thing. Yeah. And those who were not just impressed, but completely overwhelmed and overjoyed by what he was doing, which reflected in what they wished to do, starting from the first five friends of his who became known as the first 5 disciples, that they just allowed to do or to mimic what Siddhartha was doing, you know. And then, yes, it is a social thing to have such a thing become more popular, and that's how it came into being till now. Yes. So at the moment, probably it's a popular culture now at the moment, and at some point it will turn into something more traditional. Maybe after some time again disappear a little bit, again come back in another form. We don't know. Yes. But this is not really our concern, you know. If we have the merit, it will remain in various forms that will be very beneficial for all of us. But deep down, what we have to know is that each of us are intelligible enough to know what is what, actually. Yeah. And it is sad that it only takes disasters in the form of natural and man-made ones to make us wake up to it. Yeah. So, meaning that while we are healthy, while we are conscious, while we are well, not in the midst of a social unrest, why can't we realize that? You know how wonderful it would be if we could realize that we have all these qualities and potentials while everything's all somewhat all right. You know, that's the pity, I suppose. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Um, as long as we are aware at the end that even though it is taking even though somehow it seems to depend on a certain obstacle for us to realize our potential, at least we realize, you know, or the conditions are there for us to realize. And if that takes place, then it's all right. Yeah. So, in the context of AI, I have no real comment because every time the term AI is mentioned, all I can think of is Skynet, you know, which to the certain enthusiasts it will speak, to the rest it means nothing. And so all I can think is if the general notion of, I think, AI does persist, and I'm not talking about just ChatGPT. Uh, at the moment, I'm against it. But I can pretty much predict that at some point it will envelop me. But till then, I would say that if these technologies does, I don't know, in some ways have an impact on us, I don't think it would be a negative one. Yeah. Yes. Meaning that every technology that we have invented so far, starting from, I don't know, electricity, you know, and then now microphone, and then I mean, I'm just thinking of the most used technologies that seem to really help us. Yes, otherwise I'll have to shout. So when we think of this, of course, the saying is there, which is, I think, evergreen, and that's why I didn't repeat that. It's all depends on the user. Um, but the other fact that I'm trying to draw on is that that it depends on what was it? Yes. Normally, all these technologies are supposed to make our life more comfortable, so that it will give us more time. Yes, that was the whole purpose of all these technologies. It was supposed to give us time. Yeah. So that we don't have to worry about washing the dishes, planting crops, and harvesting them, and transporting us from one place to the other, so that we could focus on what we deem most important. Of course, as Buddhists, we would say so that we can meditate more or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, if that happens, then that's it. Yeah. Because the technologies are basically like with any technology, we have depended on horses, cows, and so on, pigeons. The first generation of SMS. So therefore, if these technologies are basically neutral. Yes, it's completely neutral. Yeah. And so therefore, it's well, I didn't want to repeat, but I'm repeating. It depends on the user. Yes, the attitude of it. Yes.